Okay, so welcome back to this class. In this class 3.2, we'll be talking about installing fire alarm devices. Okay, so already we all know the devices we're talking about here: the smoke detectors, the heat detectors, the manual core points, running of the cables, the fire resistant cable, and the fire alarm control panel (FACP). So this is very important. We have to know this as a technician, as an installer, as an integrator. So we have to plan our site properly, cable layout, the kind of cable we are running, the route, and how to, ensure that the pipes they are interconnected because of the loop we are going to be doing for the kind of cable, the topology we are going to be using. This is very important. That's the first thing to do. Those are preliminary stages. You have to ensure that your piping, the cables, everything are intact because the whole equipment is going to be riding, on that cable, quality of cables and all. So mounting control panel also is very important. You have to ensure that you maintain the standard height, where it can be accessible for people to check in case of outbreak. So in this next video, we're going to be watching like a uh, ways to connect for a conventional system. So let's watch. You place your smoke detector in different locations. Then you also factor your heat detectors and your manual core points. They are all wired. They are all positioned in different locations. The kitchen, the lobby, the entrance, the exit point, and all other areas, important areas. If you look at this diagram now, we have the EOL, end of line resistor. You can see each of the lines, each of the zones has its own EOL. This is very important. Okay, so let's continue. If you look at the diagram clearly, you see the EOL, then you see the cable. The cable are the live and the neutral cable. The live and neutral cable, you can see the first one, live and neutral, they are for electricity because nothing works without electricity. So we have to power our device. Then look at the red cable, which is the positive cable. It's going all the way from the control panel to the first smoke detector, from the smoke detector to the manual core point, from the manual core point to the heat detector, and that's the last device on the line, on the chain. So if it's 10 devices, you have to loop them together like this. And the last one will have the end of line resistor. This part is very important. This is just basically what you are doing. So the pipe has to link from the smoke detector to the manual core point. There's a link. So when you're running the cable, you drop for smoke detector, you tie the cable. That's how we usually do it. You tie the cable there, you go to the next point, you tie it, you go to the next one, you tie it, till you get to the last point and get your system ready for mounting of devices. You now start mounting one after the other. Then at the last equipment, last device, be it smoke detector or brake glass, you have to use the end of line resistor. It's very important. Then some people argue that it's always very good to use it or smoke detector as the end device. Some will say they prefer brake glass as the end device. Okay, depending on what works for you. Okay, so look at the outer now. Some people call it outer, some people can call it, you can use sounder or flasher or bell. So it has its own direct cable or connectivity from the panel to the outer itself. That's a direct connectivity. It's on its own. So this part is very important. I have to pay attention and lay a lot of emphasis to this. So with this now, when there's a fire on any of these smoke detector or heat detector, you send a signal to the panel, then the panel activate the alarm or the outer, and you can go and address it either with your smoke, with your fire extinguisher or fire blanket to quench the fire. Okay, so that's that for conventional. Lay emphasis on the end of line resistor and the way the wire is run. So we have to look at that. And let's go to the next slide, which is for the addressable. You can see that's the panel. The panel is mounted. Then we have the detectors, smoke detectors, then the manual core point, then the heat detector. Then look at the configuration. The outers, they are down. Then let's pay attention and look at the wiring. It's coming from the other side. Let's watch closely. Okay, so the wire for live and neutral for the electricity, just like the way we did at the other side, which is for the conventional, it has to be a power cable for power, electricity. Okay, so for the smoke detector, we have to lay a cable from the panel to the first smoke to the second manual core point to the E detector, then to the loop isolator. You can see the loop isolator there. The loop isolator is basically uh, acting, you know, like a device that corrects and monitor and prevents faults from one detector from affecting the other detector on the loop. For instance, if the first smoke detector now has a problem or has a bad current or issue, it will not affect the others. So the loop isolator is the one that is responsible for ensuring that he isolates any bad equipment or devices on the loop for the addressable. For conventional, we use end of line resistor. But for addressable, you have to activate and use your isolator isolator. So when you're planning your uh, addressable installation of system, you have to envisage or plan for loop isolator. It's a very important device. Some people will argue that they don't need it, but it's very dangerous. If anything happens to any of your devices on that loop, it can affect the entire loop or the next loop. So it's better and always ideal for you to ensure that you have your loop isolator you know, in place to avoid faults from one devices getting to the other device on your loop. Since they are all acting as a chain, as a dicey chain, as a loop from this to this to this to the end, then back to the panel. So if one is broken, it can affect the other. So the loop isolator uh, will help us to resolve that. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So look at the devices that we're going to be installing. You know, First of all, we have to ensure that the wiring is intact. Then install your detectors and you position your notification devices, which is the strobes and the sirens. Then MCP manual core point to do your connectivity. You know, you connect everything and you do your testing and commissioning and activate your maintenance straight. There should be a maintenance agreement. All right. Then compliance and maintenance between you and your vendor. Let them know that on a monthly basis or 3 month basis or yearly basis, you have to come and service your smoke detector, service your panel, check for faults and issues. Okay. So what we just did now, the video we just watched is a typical diagram. You can see the loop isolator and the standard flasher at the other left side. These are all important in a full system. This is for conventional and addressable. You can see the design. Okay. All right. So this is the end of this particular uh, class. We'll see in the next class. We promise to make this very brief and straight to the point. So we won't bore you and you get the actual point. So when we get to the practical class, we're going to be seeing how we're going to be connecting all these devices. Thank you very much. See you in the next class.